So, I took a lot of inspiration from, as many of you are educators, from Paulo Freire in Pedagogy of the Oppressed. And I kind of suggest that can we achieve the SDGs? And I've reflected on this many times. And when I went to give my annual lectures in University of Tokyo, one of the things that the students from the master's class sort of said, so you just finished the SDGs, so what do you think? And I said, I don't think you're going to be very successful. And they were a little bit shocked, sort of say, coming from somebody who's also working at the UN. The reason I say it on two counts. One is mindsets and attitudes, and Ashok Khosla actually identified mindset. I was really happy that. And if you think about mindsets and attitudes, if when you look at an example of charity in terms of poverty, SDG 1, the emphasis is always an approach of charity in terms of transfer, financial transfers. But Amartya Sen talks a lot more in terms of basic capabilities. And in a sense, it's actually the challenge of bringing in instrumental freedoms versus just a financial transfer. And you get all these philanthropists saying you're going to spend, Bill Gates and all that stuff. But it's not that. It's not a matter of transfer of financial. It's about basic capabilities and expansion of that. And that mindset has to be changed. And I can keep on going on and on. The two main things I was a bit was hoping that it would be on the SDGs is population control. Again, Khosla talked about that. And that's a major, major problem. And the second one is the arms race. The amount of resources that we put into arms, it's incredible. And we don't have an SDG goal on an arms race. It would have been great if you had a simple constraint equation which says the expenditure on arms has to be less than or equal to the expenditure on education. Boom. And you get a major initiative. So the mindset is just a matter of just partial change. So I thought that was the problem. Then we have this whole notion of right and wrong. It's either right or wrong. And we really can't, we live in such a complex world, there is no right and wrong. It is a fuzzy world out there. And one of the things that we're always struggling is where we have not a single identity, but multiple identities. Do we teach this to the children of tomorrow? That it is okay to embrace multiple identities. I can be an academic with very liberal thoughts. I can be a Muslim. I can be, I play kendo, which is a Japanese swords play. I also have that as an identity. Multiple identities, and I'm comfortable with that. I do not want to be pegged into one. And that's something that we also are missing in some of the education systems. Then the economic rationality. The last speaker very eloquently talked about. I'm an economist, come from one of the strongest neoclassical trainings. And the whole notion of economic rationality has just taken root. And if you look at the SDGs, there are a lot of trade-offs among the SDGs. You need to spend money on achieving the SDGs, and governments will then say we need to increase GDP, which means we need to use more resources, and then more pollution. And the law of physics say you just can't have no pollution. You have to have it because it's material science, material physics. So there's a lot of ambiguities and a lot of dichotomies in this. And I am a bit disappointed that none of this actually came out in the whole discussion. Then it comes to the education. So, all right, we have some hope here because the education system can change that. But the problem with our education system, as Paulo Freire says, is a banking system. It's a one-way transfer of knowledge. Here it is. This is what it is. And we also heard a little bit about values. Whose values? And this is a very dangerous ground. So one of the things that we do at the Institute is we don't start with values. We basically talk about competencies that then you provide an individual to make those values from a constructive dialogic process. And that's what that's what I think we should be pushing for. So these are the two things that I sort of say on two counts, but we have hope. So we talk about a transformative learning system. The representative from the youth talked about the 3 Ps. I call the C-cube model because I put it as cube because it's multiplicative. I don't want it to be linear. It's not just additive, it multiplies, each one of them multiplies. And the first one is consciousness raising. Can we develop the ability of individuals to pose questions? Challenge, challenge, challenge. One of the things that I found, which is now, he's now been pushed up on the pedestal in India, Swami Vivekananda, which I read some of his earlier stuff. He always says, when you want to find a guru, challenge him until you're exhausted, until you are then comfortable with the teachings. And that has to be ingrained in our education system, to pose questions, seek answers from multiple dimensions, and then take action. Not to just listen to, and especially now we have so much information overload. It's not a problem of assessing information, it's about analyzing information, questioning the information. You go to Wikipedia, you got some good pages, you got some which are really crap. And you have to be careful, but a lot of students just take it because it's Wikipedia. So consciousness raising. The other one is critical reflection, ability of individuals to understand different perspectives, made of beliefs, values, and assumptions. How do we change that? We don't want to be dogmatic. Just because I grew up in this particular type of household with this kind of do I have to have static value systems? We're living in a very fast, rapid changing world that needs our values to be constantly challenged, constantly evolving. And we don't see that in our systems. And then the last one is the convictional, the ability of individuals to want to learn and to make change and be part of that change. Yeah. The desire to learn, not just as to be productive, just to be part of an economic model, but to learn to increase the notion of happiness, the notion of well-being. I kind of refrain from happiness because there's a whole problem with happiness. Depending on different perspectives of people, different things make me happy than things that make you happy. All right, so let's broaden up into well-being, and that's the main thing that we should be looking at. Are these in our education systems? So, some ideas on how to implement. So, I just don't want to come here and just create chaos and then walk away. That's the easy way out. One of the things that we think about is, rather than creating more curriculum on environment, more curriculum on now that the kid on the block is global citizenship, and then now it's coming in preventing extremism, violent extremism. It's about, there is a big emphasis on STEM. Let's accept the fact, until we have this transitional change, every government is pushing on STEM. Now they call it STEAM, because they've added the arts into it as well. Instead of creating another curriculum for environmental science, environmental education, global citizenship, embed this whole notions into the core disciplines. The students have already up to their necks in curriculums. They have so much of stuff to cover. I have 3 kids going through now the Canadian education system, and I look at their course load and I said, oh my God, this is crazy. And then my son gets a B in Spanish and he can't say a single word in Spanish. My daughter just did sustainability science and she said that was the most boring class she's ever had. And she's doing architecture. There's something wrong here and we need to have a major change in that. I apologize to many of my colleagues who have spent years and decades on environmental education. This is a challenge in terms of how do we embed it. Now there's another thing where it's called Libre, learning through issue-based, because there's been a lot of call on the relevance of education. Why are we studying this? When I do differential equations, why on earth am I doing dy by dx? A lot of us who have gone through it, it becomes a mechanistic thing to do. You get an equation, you do dy, you do everything, do it perfectly. I have no clue why I'm doing this. So let's link it up, because it's an important and a brilliant concept. Has a lot of stuff that we need to, so let's embed it. And then we got things like virtual reality and games. Kids love games. Let's use that. And I want to leave some take-home messages because I've got saying please end. You got the first one, new mindsets through transformative learning systems. Involvement of youth is critical in transformative. Not in the youth washing. I just published an op-ed in The Guardian about youth washing. Let's not do youth washing. Let's get them really inclusive in a transparent process, and the youth, not the affluent youth, the ones who are already into the system, but the ones who are in the peripherals, the ones who don't like to speak, the ones who have not that kind of skills to come out and speak, but they have very, very valid things to say on this platform. We have to reach that out. And again, I always say, let's not tell the values, let's not preach what those values are. Let them decide what those values are, and hopefully there is a consensus on what those values are. And learning should be fun. I always had one of the worst learning experiences in my life. I hope my kids will have a more enjoyable, which is not happening as well. I hope their kids at least will have an experience where learning would be a lot of fun, just as much fun as they play with games. Thank you very much.